Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of NCompass Live. I am your host, Krista Burns, here at the Nebraska Library Commission. NCompass Live is the Library Commission's weekly online event where we share any thing that may be of interest to librarians across the state. We do these sessions live every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time, and they are all recorded, so if you can't attend one of our live sessions, you can watch one of our recordings. This week, we have sitting next to me Michael Sauers, the Technology Innovation Librarian from here at the Library Commission, and he is here with his monthly Tech Talk. So now I'll just hand over to you.
Just hand it over to me?
Yeah, all good. Yeah,
yeah, okay. You know, in all this, before we got started, I just noticed Elmo has a better mic than we do.
He does.
He's probably got the best mic of all of us, and I'm trying to figure that one out. I don't know. Anyways, I didn't take that photo. So anyways, good morning. I'm having one of those days. So is Krista from the sounds of it.
Yeah,
my name is Michael Sauers. I am the Technology Innovation Librarian here at the Nebraska Library Commission. And it is time for Tech Talk. We do this about once a month. And we get a little geekier in this case. Although, you know, tech does work into the rest of NCompass Live. But we do stuff kind of specifically for the geeks. And usually I have an interviewee or a guest presenter or two come in to talk about something in particular, and then kind of at the end we do some Q&A, and I wrap it up with some news and new websites that you might be interested in, time allowing. And so the genesis of this session, which is on cloud computing, was, Krista, I believe you got an email a couple of weeks ago.
Was it that long ago? Yeah, 3 or 4 weeks ago. I got an email from a librarian in Nebraska saying she had read an article about cloud computing in, I believe it was a school library journal or some magazine off the top of my head. And she said, I have no clue. Can you please either tell me about this or have a session training about this? And so I said, yes, we can. We can figure something out. And so we searched around. I talked to Michael, being our technology librarian here, and said, hey, what can we do? And we did it. We've brought in some people from below us, from Kansas, who are going to talk about this. Yeah. Sorry, I mean that in a good way. South of
sure you do.
So on the line, we have Heather and Sharon from Nichols, or the Northeast Kansas Library System. I'm hearing they're laughing at your comments, so I assume they can both hear us. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of hand it over here. So we'll give us a sec to switch over the technology. But and we'll go in alphabetical order here. Actually, we'll go in reverse alphabetical order because I know who has to take over the slides in a second. So Sharon, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself while we're getting this switched over, and then Heather can take over from there.
That works. My name is Sharon Moreland. I'm the technology consultant here at Nichols, and I'm sort of the head of the tech team. Prior to coming here in 2008, I was the director of the Tonganoxie Public Library. So I'm quite familiar with using technology in public libraries, and very much enjoy working with Nichols to bring innovation and new technologies to our libraries. I'm also going to introduce our phantom speaker, who is Liz Ray, there in the middle. She's our network administrator, and we have a couple of clips that she recorded for us that you'll be hearing throughout the program. So Liz was unable to join us in person today, so she's here in spirit. And Heather, if you're ready, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Before I introduce myself, can you guys see the slides? Or do you see a blank screen?
We see your desk, so
yep.
Go ahead and play.
Yep.
Okay, great. My name is Heather Brom, and I'm the technology librarian here at the Northeast Kansas Library System. And it's hard to explain what I do, but basically web-based systems, I work with them. I also catalog and work with Sharon and several others on staff here on our NextPress team. So we're going to go ahead and get started and look at living in the cloud, how using online services can let you soar. And before we get going, just so you guys know, any links that we mention or sites that you don't catch the information that we share, there's going to be a huge list of links at the end of this presentation that I believe Krista and Michael will be sharing and putting out there on the webinar resource page. So here we go. This first slide is actually a tweet that went out a couple years ago from Nicole Angleguard, and it discusses exactly what I think the question is that started this webinar. People like to talk about the cloud because it makes them feel like in heaven. What it means is I have no idea where my stuff is. And the technical definition that is basically the standard of cloud computing is that it is a model for enabling available, convenient, on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable computing resources, network servers, storage, applications, and services. What the heck does that mean? For you, the end user, you don't care about the technical end of cloud computing. What you care about are the services that use this platform, and we actually are going to be talking about the services of cloud computing, not so much this really geeky technical information that's behind it. We will maybe here and there, especially when Liz talks later on this presentation, but for the most part, you don't have to worry so much about the technical geeky part of cloud computing. Basically what it is with your stuff in the cloud, it's not a catastrophe to lose your laptop if it's stolen, destroyed, or whatever, any more than losing your glasses would permanently destroy your vision. In addition, as more and more of our information is gathered from and shared with others through Facebook, MySpace, or Twitter, having it all online can make a lot of sense. And that's from Jonathan Zittrain 2 years ago when the Chrome operating system was announced by Google. And today we are hearing more and more about that as the devices are close to being launched to members of the public. I believe that may happen this summer. We don't know much about them. I actually have seen one in person, but what it is we'll get to later. Sharon?
All righty. Go ahead and change the slide for me. Oh, thank you. So how many of these do you recognize? Have you heard of SlideShare? Are you participating in your state's WordPress-based web hosting service? Have you used Flickr? Have you ever edited a picture with Picnic? If you have, then you've already used some cloud software. If you've used Dropbox, or if you've even emailed a document to yourself, then you've used the cloud to store and to transmit your information. So there are tons of examples of cloud computing. You can have your library interface, Koha, for some of you are familiar with Koha, that is web-based. Your email, your social networks, your online data storage, lovely website, love WordPress. Photo editing, document editing, you can, everything's there, everything's in the cloud. There's benefits and concerns, and we're gonna go through all of those. But of course we're sort of optimistic, so we're going to start with the benefits. So there you go. And we're going to be using the lolcats, if you're familiar with those, to help us. We're all cat people in the Nichols office. So you can share and collaborate with the cloud. It's so easy to share your photos and your documents with your friends and your peers, and you don't have to send an email attachment. You can upload your photos to Flickr and send somebody the URL, or just let somebody know that, you know, search for my name or my nickname on Flickr and you're going to find all my stuff. There are software programs like GoToWebinar, which I think is pretty much web-based, chat rooms. You can collaborate with people in the next office or in the same office, which we do here in Nichols, or with people across the country or across the globe. One of the powerful uses of cloud computing is when you're able to collaborate with your colleagues to work on projects. So we did this when we migrate libraries onto our Koha shared regional catalog, our consortia. We use Google Documents to share our maps, mapping tables and project timelines and notes. So we're going to talk more about Google, and the Google Apps is sort of a suite of software that allows you to manage your email, your calendar, documents, plus much, much more. So I guess we'll go ding, and you can change the slide. There we go. So these are some examples of libraries already using the cloud. In this example, it's to work on a website. We have the Kansas Libraries on the Web project, and then you guys just started the Nebraska Libraries on the Web project, I heard, so congratulations. And I think you're going to enjoy it. What it allows you to do is update your website where there's an internet connection at any time from anywhere. I joke with my libraries that if you really want to update your website from the beach, as long as you can get a signal from the cabana behind you, you can update your website. Not that you would want to, because you're on vacation. Don't work while you're on vacation. You can collaborate. You can share out responsibility. So instead of having all of your web development program on a single computer, like Front Page, which is a really expensive software program, you can share out the ability and the responsibility of maintaining your website. So we have a couple of cool examples here. Our Nichols website is WordPress based, as is the Ottawa Library. I'm going to botch this. Valparaiso. I love that. I love the site. I love that you have all your photos on there too. And then your Nebraska Libraries on the website. So you don't have to be beholden to Front Page or Dreamweaver anymore.
You can also use cloud computing to stay in touch. I imagine most of the audience uses at least a tool like Facebook or Twitter or another type of social networking site. Hopefully you're not using text messages to break up with anybody, but this is my favorite lolcat, I think, in the whole presentation because it's hilarious. But you can use these tools to keep up to date professionally, personally. You can share links to articles and sites of interest. You can share blog posts. You can stay in touch with whomever and whoever you want to. We joke that you can even stay in touch with your retired state librarian if you are friends with her on one of these networks. You can commiserate and rejoice with one another. It's faster than sending out an email. It gets to a lot more people than just an email, and it's all done through the web most of the time, or even your cell phone with a wireless connection. These tools also help you stay in touch during disasters. We're seeing this, unfortunately, this week with Joplin, where we all know what happened down there, and they are using online networks to relay information instantaneously to get help for rescue, to get supplies, to get help to clean up. Whatever their needs are, they are using the web to get that information out. They are using online tools that are very easy to set up. The one on the screen was set up, I believe, 5 hours after the tornado hit. No equipment was needed, no software was needed. They just needed to get to a web browser, probably on a phone, go to a site that hosts this, set their page up, and they were ready to go. Not much technical knowledge was needed. Really, just about anybody can use these tools to do this. This is another screenshot. That the slide before uses a site called CrowdMap. And what CrowdMap allows you to do is you can collect information from cell phones, news, and the web and aggregate it all onto a map. And so you have instant information in front of you. These are being used during disasters like earthquakes, tsunamis. The political revolutions overseas in the Middle East especially have been using these sites. They are also using sites like Facebook and Twitter. Even if the phone systems are down, like they are in Joplin right now, and you can't even make calls out on your cell phone, they still can at least get text messages sent to services up in the cloud, and that information is out. As librarians know, information is power. And I think it's very safe to say that without cloud computing, all of these different things I don't think could happen, or the information could get out as quickly as it has. I mean, 5 hours after something hits and anyone worldwide can see the needs. That's powerful.
And we'll talk more about where that power comes from. And to start with, one of the, again, additional benefits of working with the cloud and storing your media up there in the heavens is you don't have to have a flash drive, you don't have to have a CD, you don't have to have a floppy disk, because I remember I still had patrons that came in with their 3.5-inch floppy disk going, I need to get my paper off of this. So you're not beholden to some sort of an external storage device. You don't have to worry about washing this tiny little jump drive and drying it in rice. And because all of the work is saved on a remote server farm, and we're going to talk more about what a server farm is in just a minute. But basically what you need to know is your patrons and staff are already doing this. So this is where your data lives. It lives in these giant data centers where they have server clusters, because when you do these collectively, the electricity is cheap and you can get the bandwidth for less money. There was an article in Casey Star in May of 2008 that said server farms are becoming a cash crop in the Midwest, and it was told about Google farms in Pryor, Oklahoma and Council Bluffs, Iowa that were cropping up because electricity was cheap, 4 to 5.5 cents versus 9 cents in California. So Google and Amazon and some of the other companies that are getting into this business see it as a way to make money. Diversifying locations makes Google's network more stable, as sabotage or natural disaster in a single location will have less impact. That is good, and when things do go wrong, that means it sort of impacts a large area but not everyone, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. Computing is going to become a utility, just like water and electricity. In the same way, it would be inefficient for each home to have its own electrical generator. It can make sense for consumers and businesses to farm out their computing needs. This is all from an article on redorbit.com that we'll share out at the end of this presentation. But your data is stored in the cloud. It's not stored in this mess. Your software lives on the internet. So again, instead of having to find that disk that has the software program on it and install it every time you get a new machine, your software is up there on the internet. Google Apps is software. Screencasting, if you've done any kind of where you take a video of what your mouse is doing on your screen and overlay it with some narration. If you share photos, if you edit those photos on Picnic. And there are lots of new software programs that are popping up. Avery Tools is a suite of creative applications for your web browser. It includes image editing and screen capture and music creation and audio editing. So for those libraries that are interested in becoming a creative space and a place for patrons to come and be creative, create new things, work on music, work on their writing, you can do all of this with web-based software. The other thing that the cloud allows you to do is stream music, which I think we probably are all doing at one time or another. Netflix, which is basically streaming movies. And then if you're familiar with Goodreads and some of the other reading social networks which are popping up, and I think those would be of interest to libraries as well. And wherever there is internet, you will have access. So that is the crux. The biggest issue is internet. If you have internet or a cell network connection, you can log in from anywhere. So what that means is you need to have bandwidth. You need to have lots of bandwidth. Because without bandwidth, all of these cloud applications and software services don't do you much good. With good bandwidth, you can also, instead of having a server in your office, you can be storing your information up in the cloud. For example, Amazon has Amazon Simple Storage Solutions and Amazon Elastic Cloud Computing, which are both Amazon Web Services that you can use to store data. Some of the other things that cloud computing is allowing is the ability to help science. Grid computing it's called, and you can do SETI, S-E-T-I, at home and help NASA and help try to find extraterrestrial life, if you want to allow your computer to become part of this cloud of computers to process data. And when you're purchasing things online, you're using cloud services as well. So gaming, chat, there's so much to do. And it's so easy to do. There we go. The interfaces are usually very similar to what the desktop application is, and the processes that you go through with these web-based or cloud-based software programs are similar. The interfaces are similar. So if you're able to attach a document to an email, then you're probably going to be able to upload a photo to Flickr or import a document to put on your WordPress site or attach a YouTube video about the people of Walmart on your Facebook. Not that you would want to do that with your library Facebook. The interfaces are similar to desktop applications, which is good because you want continuity. The Google Docs, and Google Docs is a suite of, you can do word processing online, you can do spreadsheets and presentations. And creating a document in Google Docs looks very much like Word or whatever word processor you're familiar with. And the nice thing is it's not dependent on your operating system. So if you're using a Google Doc on a Linux or a Mac or a PC, it's going to act the same. If you're using Internet Explorer, Safari, Chrome, or Firefox, it's going to look the same, which is awesome. Got to flip my page. There we go. One of the other benefits of cloud computing is you're not so reliant on the hardware. You are reliant on increased bandwidth, but not so much on the hardware capacity. You don't have to have tons of storage on this tower at your desk because most of the stuff that you're storing, like those, many, many megabytes of pictures, are up in the cloud. So how will we get to the cloud? Well, if you have a device and it has wireless, you can get to the cloud. So netbooks, nettops, and nettops are, if you've seen netbooks, I call them mini laptops, and they have sort of this reduced hardware configuration. Sometimes it's slightly older technology, but at the same time that makes it less expensive. You can get a Linux nettop for about $300. You can use those because basically what you need is a way to get to the cloud, not do a lot of processing on this piece of hardware. So you can use tablets, you can use your mobile devices, your smartphones, iPod touches, iPads, and also your e-readers. E-books are basically a cloud computing service. If you have a Kindle or if you know somebody has a Kindle, you may or may not be familiar with the fact that it is attached to Amazon.com, which is a website. And when you purchase your books, you have to download them from Amazon.com, and then Amazon keeps track of where you are. And so that whisper-sync technology that they're known for works with the cloud to make sure that you know where you are in your book, and it helps, Amazon.com basically helps you manage the storage and retrieval of these ebooks, which are just electronic files. There's lots of new tablets coming out, so be aware. There you go, Heather, I'm done.
Okay. One of the most important things with cloud computing is that you need to choose reliable providers. The bigger the company, the better. We've already talked about most of the sites you're seeing their logos on the screen. Basically, the bigger that it is, the more likely that it will not suddenly stop working one day. There was a point last year where a lot of people were concerned about Delicious going inactive, and we're scrambling to find different services. The good news is someone else has bought that out. But as we all know, with the web economy, it is very volatile and companies come and go. And so right now, still in the early days of cloud computing, the best thing you can do is choose the services from the big companies. we're going to hear from Liz Ray here in a second while she talks about how Neckles uses the cloud in our office. If you guys could play that first video clip.
Okay, here we go.
Some of you might be aware. Is that it's not just the service you're using, it's the services behind the services.
Did you hear most of that?
No.
Okay, we're going to try it again. Sorry, something happened on our end.
Was that the right?
Hit
that the right
back. That was the right one, but sorry, confusion.
It's okay.
Some of you might be aware that a few weeks ago there was a big
No, that's the wrong clip.
Wrong clip. Okay, shoot. Okay, hit the. We had this all set up. There we go. Okay. Nope. There we go. Hold on.
The Northeast Kansas Library System uses cloud computing for many of our projects. For our email, we use Google Apps. We also use Google Apps for its calendaring, its documents, and pretty much anything else that we can think of to use it for. If they offer it, we'll take it. We also use services such as Dropbox to help move files around our system. Other services such as Amazon Web Services and Rackspace we use for virtual hosting of machines that we might not want to host here or that might have extreme bandwidth needs. We use cloud computing to make sure that we have enough capacity to fill the needs of the projects that we want to complete. We also use services such as LogMeIn to help our member libraries with technical support. Some of our libraries are over 2 hours away, so if we had to drive out there every time they had a problem, it would be a lot of time spent on the road. Using LogMeIn, we don't worry about that, but it's all cloud-based too. We communicate with our members through Twitter and Facebook, and we use Flickr to share our photos. These are just some of the things that Neckles uses cloud computing for.
Okay, so that's how Neckles uses cloud computing. Now we're going to turn to the concerns about cloud computing, and there are many still. And the first thing is this quote from Jenny Levine. It's from 2 years ago, but it still does hold true. And you guys can look at that later. She has an entire blog post about her concerns behind cloud computing. So the first concern we want to talk about is data security. If all your data is online, you need it to be secure in order for you to feel okay about sharing all this information out in the cloud. We all have heard about the problems with Facebook when it gets hacked. Either your account gets compromised or someone shares information that suddenly you don't want in your profile necessarily and you never put on there, but because somebody else was compromised, you are now compromised. That does happen. You can click on bad links and your computer gets compromised. The Sony PlayStation Network issues are still ongoing. They were hacked last month and thought they got the network back up, and I heard just in the last week that they've been hacked again, and so data security is still a problem. You also have to worry about how you're accessing the cloud, accessing the web. if you're using a public Wi-Fi network, if your public library has an open Wi-Fi network, there are some very legitimate concerns about how secure the information is. Checking your bank account on a completely open network, not such a good idea, because there are tools out there that if people are malicious enough, they can get at your data and see what you're browsing and even possibly steal your identity. Password security. This is probably at the top of the list of the most important behavior with online services. You need to have a strong password. If you have time later on, please look at the list of 500 worst passwords of all time. You can even Google it and this will come up. If your password is on that list, change it, because that is the list of the most commonly used passwords around the world that the hackers keep, and they can quickly get into your information. So create a good password, and I think Sharon will talk about that again later. You also have to be concerned about privacy, especially, you know, a lot of us have concerns about Google. We're putting all this information up on their services. Is it private? Is it secure? The Google Chrome OS that I talked about a little bit ago, that is one of the greatest concerns behind it. You know, if you use this platform, which is basically a new operating system that is only web-based on hardware that will be released this summer, all your information is stored on the Google networks that is tied to your account that you use on this laptop. Is that secure? Is that private? Data privacy is probably going to become one of the greatest questions in the next 10 years. And as librarians, something that we are already concerned about. This is a question we are going to have to look at continuously. We also need to teach patrons about privacy. We all know about the Facebook privacy settings. When was the last time you looked at your settings to make sure that you are sharing to whom you want to be sharing, not anyone around the world who has a Facebook account? Something else to consider is that, you know, with privacy, we have all of these laws for personal privacy in what you could call the analog age. But in the digital age, in this cloud computing time period, the law can't keep up with technology. So what does that mean? The Patriot Act, I don't think I need to say more, but law enforcement, you know, coming into your libraries to ask to get at your computers because the patron is suspected of looking at things online. What do you do? Mining data. As you put data on these services, are they using that data to do market research, to collect all this information and sell it to another company to use for nefarious purposes? That can go on. Facebook photos have been used in ads from time to time. Concern there. A couple years ago, there was a lot of kerfuffle about an George Orwell book that was sold on the Amazon Kindle store that was not necessarily legitimately copyrighted, and it was pulled from all the people who had bought it through the Kindle store, including one student who had had a lot of notes on his book, and it was for a class assignment. Yeah, he was mad. The funniest part about that was it was the book 1984, and Amazon took a lot of flack for that. So all of this is related to privacy, a pretty big concern with cloud computing. There also is the concern of a catastrophic failure of your cloud provider. What do you do if the hard drive is erased, or it's struck by lightning, or a tornado goes through it? What do you do? And that is also tied to failure is always a possibility. And before I continue on this slide, let's hear from Liz quickly about something that happened just last month about failure in the cloud.
Okay, we're going to try this again.
Okay.
Some of you might be aware that a few weeks ago there was a big failure of the Amazon EC2 cloud. Nichols was actually affected by this. We help host our Kansas libraries on the web in EC2, and we were in the affected zone. It was kind of a big problem. The good thing, the bad thing about being in the EC2 was that, yes, it went down. It was down for a while, a whole day, in fact. The good thing was that by using the cloud, we were just able to kind of abandon our old server and bring a new one up from the backups, which had been taken just minutes before the failure. So as you can see, it's not foolproof. Things can go wrong. It's fun to be in the cloud and to have all of your data accessible to you anywhere, but it comes with a little bit of a cost in that you're using the services, but you're also using the services behind the services and the services behind the services that are behind the services, all the way back to, is the power station working where you're at? So that's one of the things that we like to remember when we're using cloud services, is that it's not just the service you're using, it's the services behind the services.
Did we get it right that time?
You guys got it right. Thank you.
Yay!
And that actually, she segues really nicely into that link that's at the bottom of this slide, down for everyone or just me. One of the things I want you to take away from this presentation is this website. As you use cloud services more and more, some things that can happen is your internet goes down, or the site that uses this goes down, or like Liz said, the site that the site is hosted on goes down. And what Down for Everyone or Just Me is, it's a simple website. You plug in the website address of where you're wanting to go if it looks to be down. And it will tell you it's just you, or it looks like it's down from here. And so that'll tell you, one, okay, something's wrong locally, or two, something is wrong down the pipe that you have no control over. So it can help you troubleshoot what's going on. Something else you can do is, if you're a Twitter user, search.twitter.com. Even if you're not a Twitter user, you can go to search.twitter.com and search for the service that may be having issues, especially if Gmail goes down, Delicious, maybe not Twitter since that's Twitter, but any of the big services, if they go down, people are using these worldwide, and they will get on social networks and complain about it, and so you will know that it's either you or it's worldwide.
My turn again. So obviously the cloud is never 100% reliable, and so it's best to have a little bit of redundancy, which is just a good idea anyway, speaking as someone who had their laptop stolen. So you as librarians and your patrons should consider backups, especially for important documents. So do you have a print copy? Do you have an additional digital copy? You've created your document in Google Docs. Did you save it or print it as a PDF and then have that PDF stored somewhere else? And another really simple example is with your pictures, again with my laptop being stolen. Luckily I had uploaded a bunch of my pictures to Facebook, and then I put some additional pictures on Flickr, so that when my laptop was stolen, guess what? I still had my photos. And so if you're cognizant that you need backups, especially of really important things, which is just good computing practices, one of the risks of working with the cloud would be mitigated. And you can use additional or different cloud services to do those backups, including Dropbox or Mozy.com. So we're going to HARP. You are only as secure as your password. So we train our librarians, and we use this in-house, some best practices for creating passwords. For example, we do substitutions. So if you can read that password at the bottom, if you realize that that says my friend Bob, then you can see how we use letters to substitute for numbers to substitute for letters. 1s are I's, 3s are E's, 8s are B's, 0s are O's. We also tend to use @ for A, exclamation points. Some sites won't let you use characters like that, but if they do, that just enhances and strengthens your password. Please use at least 6 to 8 characters. Some of my passwords are 13 to 15 characters. Combine capital letters with lowercase, with punctuation. Make it something that you can remember and associate any of your cloud accounts with a legitimate email address, so that when you do maybe forget your password because you haven't been on that site for a while, that they can send you a reminder or can send it back to you. But good passwords protect your data.
Make sure you read the terms of service on these sites. Admittedly, I don't all the time, but it is good to go back and read them because it tells you how they're going to use your data. They're free for a reason. Most of these sites, if they're free, they are collecting your information and your content, and they, depending on their terms of service, may use that. They may take intellectual property rights on what you share on those sites. The terms of service will spell all that out. They'll tell you what will happen what will get you kicked off that site, behavior, this is the Facebook terms of service in front of you. I don't know if you can read that, but the first three are about privacy, sharing your content and information, and safety, what to do. Restrictions, I think that's the next one, restrictions and account security, so something to keep in mind. And they change a lot. From time to time, you will have to re-agree to the terms of service if they change. Read those the next time you see one of them and see if you like what's in there. I know some of them are long, but it's very eye-opening to what these services are doing. So that leads us to the final big questions for libraries especially. What does this mean for your software purchasing? What it means is you may not have to purchase as many licenses for software, especially Microsoft Office. You may be able to get by on cloud computing apps in OpenOffice. OpenOffice is an open source desktop-based Office suite that is free, obviously. At the same time, you'll probably still want to at least maintain one computer with the latest version of Office for those people who specifically need Office. But as Sharon mentioned earlier, there are suites of software to do image editing. Do you really need to buy that expensive image editing suite from Adobe or another vendor, or could you find one of these tools online that perfectly meet your needs and spend the money on books or towards another computer? I know a lot of you are small and money is tight, something to consider. Hardware purchasing, you may not need to refresh your stations quite so often, depending on how your patrons are using them. If they are all using the web, you may not need to update them quite so frequently, replace them if they're in good working order. You also may be able to explore cheaper alternative platforms, again, like Sharon talked about earlier, the NetTop or the NetBox platforms, or even using Linux on your patron computers. If all you need is a web browser and the plugins, which I'll talk about here in a second, does your computer need to be so powerful? The software on the computers themselves, web browsers, and I recommend you put all the major ones on there, especially Firefox, Chrome. Some people like Safari, it's out there. Opera is another alternative one that is out there that I know the people that use it love it, and of course, grudgingly, Internet Explorer. We are not fans, admittedly, of Internet Explorer, but I know some people have to use it because of local policy or needs, or even a specific website requires Internet Explorer still. But typically, Firefox and Chrome do tend to be better about handling most of the major cloud applications. You also will need to make sure you have your plugins up to date, especially Flash, Shockwave, QuickTime, a PDF reader plugin from Adobe, for example, Java, Silverlight. Those affect PDFs, games, online games, which we really haven't talked much about, but that is also a large example of cloud computing, is all the online games that are out there. Video, another huge use of cloud computing is all the online video sites. And then security. Again, read the terms of service of the websites. Have good passwords. Make sure your local computers are up to date on the security updates and any antivirus software if it's needed. There may be times where your data is inaccessible. If the site is down, What do you do when that happens? What do you do if your library system software is online and the computer that it's stored on goes down? What do? You are able to jump over to another computer, bring up the website, and keep on working. But if your whole network goes down, have an alternative plan in place. Also, finally, make sure you always do backups. This is our last slide, our contact information, including our email and our Twitter handles. Also, all the links and sites that we have mentioned are up on Delicious. Our slides are online, and I have sent the links to Krista and Michael to share out with you all later on the archive page. And that's what we have for you. What kinds of questions are out there?
Yes, Heather, I did get your email, so we will, when the recording is posted for this, have the link to the slideshow, and everything they talked about in here, all the links in Delicious will be on there as well.
Do we have any questions from the audience at the moment?
No.
No? Okay.
But if you do have any questions, please send them in, type them in.
Yep. Yeah, either through the Q&A or you can raise your hand and we can turn on your microphone. Great presentation. Thank you very much. An overview, I think, is what we really needed, and I think what kept running through my mind the whole time is, especially through these tech talks, I've been talking about all this stuff, but I never actually think I said the word cloud computing during any of it, even though that's what I was talking about in almost all of these examples. Just a couple things that popped through my head. The one is a net top. I actually there are very few rooms in my house that don't have a computer, and the kitchen is not one of them. We have a little net top computer in a cabinet with a little swing down monitor, and my wife stores her thousands upon thousands of recipes through a service called Evernote. And so we just boot up the computer and swing down the monitor and pull up Evernote and pull up recipes, and she can do whatever she wants. And I'm not being sexist here. She loves to cook, so she has a cookbook collection too. So that would be kind of a scenario for a net top where we didn't want a laptop in the kitchen, but we could hide a little tiny net top in a cabinet somewhere.
Well, and we really didn't. Michael, can I jump in real fast?
Yeah. Oh, please.
Okay. We didn't mention this in the presentation, but we actually do have a lot of our libraries in Northeast Kansas using net tops. Actually, it's the net box in most cases. If you are using the touchscreen net tops, where the monitor is the computer, but where we have found these useful, and they actually, one library actually has had them for 2 years. Small space, she doesn't have a lot of room, she didn't have a large budget, but she desperately needed to upgrade several computers all at once. And so that's what we turned to. And what do her patrons do? Online games, Facebook, email, online job applications. That's what these devices are perfect for.
Absolutely.
The other thing that I remembered you were talking about the Chrome notebooks. Our February Tech Talk was with Jason Griffey, who had one of those early demo CR48 Chrome laptops. So if anybody in the audience wants more information on those, I will point you back to our February Tech Talk. And then we do have a question from the audience. And I'll give this to you two, and if you want to pass it back, I'm more than welcome to take it. Could you comment on using HTTP versus HTTPS?
Sharon, do you want to talk about that with Express?
Yeah, Liz would be best, but since she's not here, I will do my best. We have gone through and made our staff client and our OPAC both secure, so HTTPS. That's a secure socket layer, and other than that, I just know that it's more secure. And what you want to look for is the little lock in the corner. So your online banking site is probably going to be a secure socket layer whenever you're using PayPal or purchasing things on Amazon. So you want to look for that S. That S just means added security, and your information is going to be encrypted. So yes.
If you have the choice between using HTTP and HTTPS, if the site allows that, use HTTPS whenever possible. That's really the easiest way to look at it. The S means secure. Not all sites have that capability. but most of the major online sites, your banking sites, will have it. Facebook has it. Gmail has it. Even Twitter now has it. Whenever possible, do use it. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, regular listeners of the Tech Talk will know I'm constantly pushing the security stuff. I've given the password talk. I'll add that there are plugins or add-ons for both Chrome and Firefox that will alert you and or force your browser to use HTTPS on sites when it's available. So yet another reason not to use Internet Explorer, I would say, in that case.
We call it Internet Exploder here. I hope that doesn't offend anybody, but yeah, we are not fans of Internet Explorer at all.
Yeah, I'll agree with you and stop there. Okay, any other questions coming in from the audience? Krista's looking.
No, not at the moment.
Okay.
Just comment, a very good presentation. Thank you.
Right. All right. Well, I'm going to say thank you also. I really appreciate you guys being able to find some time in your, I know, busy schedules to do that. And thank you for mentioning Nebraska Libraries on the web, too. That was not planned.
No, it wasn't.
I was kind of, bouncing up and down in my chair when I saw that slide. So thank you very much for that. And I will thank back Kansas in general, too. I cannot remember her name. Who runs Kansas Libraries on the web?
That's
Liz does.
Liz.
Sharon does.
Yeah, okay, Sharon.
Yeah.
I remember talking to somebody out there a year or so ago when we were thinking of moving to WordPress and got some very good advice from you folks. So I appreciate that.
Someone has actually already gone to your list to delicious off of your the tiny URLs you have here on the slide and says, love the list to delicious. Thank you.
Oh, good. And like we said, we'll include that with the recordings and everything also.
Oh, yeah.
So once again, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and take control back here and kind of go through our links and stories for that. So thank you, ladies. And we're going to mute you. You're welcome to hang out. We got probably about 5 or 10 more minutes worth of stuff for me to cover. So
Thanks for having us.
Yep,
Thank you.
Okay, change presenter. Me. Yes. And close that.
Yes.
Okay. So basically, I've just got a short list of things I want to run through real quick. Some of them are actually completely related to what we talked about today, and that wasn't actually intentional. So these are going to be a little random, but just some interesting things I found. One is there's a new movement afoot for you web designers to include a new sort of file with your website called humans.txt. Many web designers are familiar with the robots.txt file, which controls how search engines index your site. This is a little file that you can stick on your website called humans.txt that actually explains the human beings behind the website. Just gives a little bit of information about who's actually done the website, that sort of thing.
We are people, not machines.
Yeah, we are people, not machines. And there's even a WordPress plugin to do this. And I've started playing around with it. To be honest, it doesn't exactly do much, but the theory is that search engines would actually start to index this content. It's a little bit more metadata for your website. So something you might want to consider adding to that, and I've just linked to an article about it there. To somebody who has lost their laptop, my apologies, but I will add that this just happened to be one of the bookmarks that I found out. This is called Prey. Sorry, it's kind of cut off there just a little bit, but it's an open source piece of software that will sit on your machine, and then should your laptop get stolen, you can log in and it will kind of activate itself and log information about maybe what Wi-Fi access points it's connected to, if any photos have been taken with the webcam, that sort of thing, and possibly help you track down who took your laptop.
Yeah,
so,
someone on somewhere, friend feed or somewhere mentioned this in the last month or so.
Yeah.
I immediately bookmarked it and using it on our laptop at home. Personal
yeah.
one, just might as well.
Exactly. Yeah, can't hurt. Just kind of sits there in the background until you need it. If there's any photographers in the room, this is something I just discovered about a week ago, and I'm going to start playing with it because those who know me know I take a lot of photos, but I still use a point and shoot. I don't really use manual settings all that much. The idea with this simulator is you can actually start playing around with the settings, and then take the photo, and it will show you what that picture would look like with those settings, so you can try to learn what those settings on your camera do without actually using your camera, which, I don't know, it's a simulator. Yeah. But you can, so far with this, I've taken a really lot of bad photographs.
Well,
So.
That's how you learn. What
Exactly.
are the bad settings, so I know what the good ones are, and why would I use them in a real situation?
Yeah. So I thought it was just kind of a cool little tool.
It's nice to practice
Yep.
anytime.
For the music lovers and the
Yes,
librarians in the
awesome.
room, this is just amazing. The National Jukebox went live from the Library of Congress. It is thousands and thousands of recordings of varying quality, shall we say, but I think it's all like prior to 1920 because it's all out of copyright stuff. And you can search, you can get playlists, there's a lot of spoken word on here. They've got recordings of Teddy Roosevelt's on here, of him. They put out records because that's how they got the audio out. So, I mean, just play around with this. Just somebody will need this in your library somewhere at some point, and you'll have fun with it. And I love listening to all the old jazz. I mean, the really old jazz, kind of the pre-jazz jazz. There is some really cool stuff in here, and completely searchable. So something I just wanted to mention to everybody. Speaking of security, this is actually about 2 weeks old now, and this is my first chance I've gotten to mention it. Please, if you have not changed your Facebook password this month, please go do so right after this. I've linked to 2 articles off the Delicious list dealing with this, one a little more general, one a lot more technical, explaining what the actual problem is. But there has been a leak in Facebook for the last several years that can allow somebody to get into your account and impersonate you. The solution is very simple. Just change your password, because they fixed the problem on their end, but they haven't. But in order for it to kick in, you have to change your password.
Yeah, that's all.
So go
And
change your
they
Facebook
did
password.
Say also, I remember reading over this, that as far as they know, it's something that's kind of hidden, so to speak, in there, that third party can get access to it. But from what they can tell, none of these third parties knew about it or anything with it, but it was there.
Yeah.
This is why you hadn't heard about it. There weren't any of the credit card. Oh my gosh, everyone's information, because nobody actually did do this.
But
they fixed
now everybody knows.
Yeah, now everybody knows that that was there. It's been fixed. Set yourself a new password, and you're good to go.
Yep, exactly. So, and set yourself a good password.
Oh yes.
Yes, that too. And then on the social web end, I learned about this site called Memo Lane. And what this does is I've pointed it to Foursquare and to my Twitter account and to Facebook and to Flickr, and it will integrate with a whole bunch of different sites. Okay. Then what it does is actually goes back through those sites, pulls that content, and organizes it on a timeline.
Interesting.
So you can go back through here and say, you know what? Let's see, September 20.
2007.
Oh, notice I've done nothing on September 23rd. That's my birthday. So I did nothing online that day. So I did, and I've got this back to like 2005. I mean, it pulled data from way back. So here I favorited a video on YouTube, favorited a piece of music on Last FM. Here's some other video stuff. Here's something I put up on Facebook, and you can kind of drag this, I think. Here we go. So it's
a reminder that old stuff you did online is out there still.
It's
This
still
is
on there, yes.
2007.
Exactly. And in fact, I think it goes all the way back, in my case, to early 2006, April 2006, which is probably about the time. Yeah, I put some stuff on YouTube, my first videos there. So yeah, it's just this cool little service, especially if you're someone like Krista and I who have dumped all this content on all these sites. It's kind of a way to organize it and bring it back and put it all together. So, and then lastly, because it was mentioned in our presentation, the Down for Everyone, or Is It Just Me? It looks like I'll mention here, isup.me, actually is the short version of the URL. Probably a little easier to remember, I would say. I've used this in the past. I've also usually go on Twitter and say, hey, has anybody else got a problem with this website? Because I keep forgetting about this one. But you can say something like, for example, google.com, because you can't get to it. and it does say, yep, it's just you because it's working for us.
Itself.
So, you know, handy dandy sort of thing.
Yeah, nice.
All right, so that's my list. Like we said, there's in my Travel and Librarian account, or with the recording, we'll be putting it on all these links on the Commission's account.
Mm-hmm.
So with the recording, you'll have bookmarks to all of these. You didn't have to write down all those URLs.
No. That's why we don't give them to you. They'll be up there when the recording goes up.
Exactly.
Okay,
So that's it for me.
Okay, doesn't look like anybody's tossed in any questions while we were talking here, so that's good. We're about 5 minutes after 11, so I think we will wrap things up for today. Thank you again to Heather, Sharon, and Virtual Liz from the Northeast Kansas Library System, talking to us about cloud computing today. And as we said at the beginning, for any of you who weren't here, this was actually a request by one of our librarians here in Nebraska who had sent me an email and said, I read this article about cloud computing. Can you tell me anything about it, or can you do a session on it? And she asked, and so we did. Yep. So if you have an idea for something you want to know more about and you don't know, send us a message and we can figure out for someone who can talk about it. It can be anything, not just technology related. This just happens to be this month's Tech Talk. Anything library related. We'll find someone who can talk about it. Or if you want to share something.
Oh, yes. Even better.
Exactly. You see how easy that was? We just had 2 librarians from Kansas remoting in and one who wasn't even around. Awesome.
Yeah. Hey.
So contact me and we can do something for you.
Yeah, and just the 4 people who were live were in 3 different rooms, and then a 4th person. So you know, hey, you got somebody you're doing something with on the other side of the world. We all get together at the same time. We can make it work. Yeah, little glitches here and there, but you know, we'll figure it out.
We're willing to experiment. So that will wrap it up for today's session. And I hope you'll join us next week when our topic is Want to Get Happy, APP all caps, using the iPad in schools and libraries, where Sarah Churchill, media specialist at Blair Community Schools, is going to talk about iPods, iPads, and educational and literary apps that can be used for these. There it is, yeah.
Yay.
So I hope you'll join us next Wednesday morning for that. This session has been recorded and will be posted later today or tomorrow. So, looks like nothing has come in unless you missed. So, thank you very much for attending, and we will see you next week.
Bye.